So, hi everybody. We are going to talk about Lorine Niedecker's poem Foreclosure. I'll read it and then it's a short poem, so we don't have to do it in order, and we'll just see what we can make of it, okay? Here we go. Foreclosure. Tell him to take my bare walls down, my cement abutments, their parties thereof, and claws of claws. Leave me the land, scratch out the land. May prose and property both die out, and leave me peace. Okay, Mandana, in the most general way, what's the location? Where are we? What's the situation?
She's probably in some sort of homestead or kind of, I'm thinking, central part of the United States, and she's being foreclosed.
And what is, Erica, what is foreclosure in the most basic sense in the United States or anywhere?
She's losing her house.
To whom?
The bank.
The bank, presumably. And this is the case. Lorine Niedecker owned a house that she'd inherited or bought maybe from her mother, a pretty modest house in rural Wisconsin. And this poem, I believe, was written in the 1930s. So this was a time of the Depression where the banks had to foreclose or chose to foreclose. So does anybody want to say a little more specifically what foreclosure entails?
You lose your home and maybe everything that's in it too. Right? I mean, you're homeless. You lose that space.
Mm-hmm.
It's also pretty brutal because they will come and take every bit of it, which is why that whole area of take my walls, take these cement abutments is so profound.
So, Ramina, let's just look at the first line. Tell him to take my bare walls down. What's she saying? Translate into regular English. That's pretty regular English, actually.
Yeah. Well, I guess she's talking about her house.
Why are they bare?
Oh, I guess her house is being foreclosed on. She doesn't have a lot of money, so maybe she's already sold.
So
a
there's
lot
two
of things.
possibilities. One
She
is that
has a
she's
plain
just,
house.
Lorine Niedecker lives in a fairly bare wall with bare walls. The other is she's prepped for the foreclosure. She's taken her things down. Okay. And why does she say, go ahead and take my wall down? That's an odd thing if she's pissed, as Allison puts it.
I feel like she's kind of like in her desperation. She's just sort of like, well, to hell with it. Like, just take everything. You know?
Go ahead,
she's
make
kind of,
my day.
She's
Take
giving
my
it up.
walls
She's
down.
I love
abandoning
the
it.
bare walls because she's kind of saying, I already have nothing.
I already have nothing. Go ahead and take them down.
There.
Yeah. So it's really like she's basically locking down the possessions, which turn out to be words, because that's all she has left. Kind of going to the end, but whatever. Tell him to take my bare walls down, my cement abutments. And now, Pamela, their parties thereof. Have you ever worked with lawyers? Can you move the mic toward her? Great, thank you. Do you want to say something about that?
I think she's just trying to use legalese, because when you get foreclosed upon, you get served with a lot of papers and a lot of legal papers, and so she's just saying the parties thereof, and they can be very confusing, all those legal papers.
Yeah. Why do lawyers, especially jerky, sorry for anybody who's listening to this, but jerky lawyers who are involved in foreclosures in the middle of Wisconsin in the Depression, come on, can't you find a better job than that? But why do they use language like this? Why can't they just say, you owe us money, you can't pay monthly, we own the note, we collect on the note, we're coming to the house to get it from you. Why can't they say that?
Well, this depersonalizes a pretty tragic situation.
Legal language depersonalizes it and confuses people. The parties are the first part and the parties are their parties thereof. She is clearly satirizing language.
She's claiming their language as they're claiming her land, which is kind of fantastic.
Wow. She is saying, as we said in the previous line, I've got language that you cannot move. You've got language that just dissipates into crap. I'm taking that language for my poem. What's left to possess? Clause of clause. So basically, this is legal theft, legal robbery, and she's punning on that to mock it, as was suggested earlier. Okay, then new stanza, leave me the land. So now this is complicated. Allison?
So, well, I wanted to just emphasize what you had said about the clause of clause, which is that it's a legalized shakedown. I mean, it's really just an institutionalized ability to take from innocent people for the most part. And I love how the clause of clause links with scratch out the land.
Nice.
I like that those two come together.
Clause and scratch work perfectly. When she says, leave me the land, what's she saying? Translate that into content.
Leave me I don't care about the building.
She's
I
saying,
want the
take
grass.
the house. Have you
Yeah.
ever seen Lorine Niedecker's house in
Yeah.
pictures? It's not much. It's kind of concrete blocks, but the land
Yeah, that's the value.
is a Native American land. I think it's Black Hawk, and she's on Black Hawk Island, which is not quite an island, and she's basically saying, "Okay, you're going to take the house, but leave me the land." Why? Why? What would Black Hawk say about that?
Native Americans don't believe in the ownership of land.
Exactly. Scratch out the land is confusing unless.
Are you scratching it on an actual contract? Are you scratching out the
What if
land?
you're scratching it out on the contract? Scratch out the land. So leave me the land, scratch out the land. So she's trying to get the contract revised. And scratch reflects back on clause very nicely. Chris, you were going to say something brilliant as you did
Well,
before?
no, so if
Can
you
we get a
scratch
mic?
out the land from the previous sentence, then you're left with just leave me.
Can you speak generally to the absence of punctuation in this poem in a meaningful way? Because, modern poetry is all about how formal choices reflect content. So does the choice of no punctuation reflect her content? Tough question.
She is saying, let's not have rules. Let's just speak. Let's just be. Let's just live on the land.
What would experimentation with punctuation do in terms of content?
In terms of content, I'm not sure. In terms of like being read out loud, it informs a lot. It gives you a lot of structures on how to say it. Whereas
If you do have
if you
punctuation.
do have,
and
whereas
if you
this
don't,
I can say it however I like.
yes. So the lack of punctuation opens the meaning, and so if you eliminate syntax, if you eliminate punctuation, you get an openness, and that is a defiance against the contracts and foreclosure documents, which have all the periods in the right way, and as it were, are dotting I's and crossing T's. And she's basically evacuating her open-ended poetry to leave her the land. Okay, tell us about prose and property. What do prose and property have to do with each other? Why would she put them together? It's so funny to have prose in there.
Well,
You can pass if you want.
well, no, there's alliteration there, and
Oh,
then
good.
and then law is prose,
Yeah.
and law believes in property.
Okay, and what did Emily Dickinson say about prose? Does anybody want to? I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of chambers as the cedars, etc. What's she saying about prose there, Dickinson? Anybody?
It's limited.
It's limited, it's descriptive, it tends to be narrative, it's denotative, it's the opposite of possibility. And what was that where she dwelt? I'm so glad I brought up this poem.
Her house.
Her house. And this is a house too. This is why this is a Dickinsonian poem in ModPo, because she's saying, I have a house, but it's a house of possibility, and frankly, the bank can take the prose part of it. Leave me the poetry. Leave me the land. Oh, Suzanne, how about may? That diction, may, prose, and property. May. It's a funny use of may since she's been so rude about her verbs so far.
May is prayerful.
It's a prayer. Or a curse.
Or a curse.
Isn't it a curse? Isn't this a curse? Dan, do you have a thought on this?
Yeah, he's taking his turn. She's left with nothing but herself. A good way to start over.
Prose and property are gone. What's left? It's a ratio. Prose is to property as what is to what. What's left? What's the opposite? Prose is gone. What's left?
Poetry.
Poetry. Property's gone. What's left?
Peace.
Peace. I want to get final words. I love this poem, and our conversation about it, I think, has been fantastic. Let's just end by getting any final words. Anybody want to say anything? And you can say simply that you really like the poem and what you like about it.
I feel like there's a level of anger here that is dissipated by the end. And I kind of feel like it's not, like, her anger isn't fully justified by the end. I don't know why.
He said that he loved the bastardization of legalese and the commentary on the impersonal government.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. And indeed, if this poem is first and foremost about peace in relation to Native American concepts of land, it is secondly about language. She's trying to rescue the language from the human organizations that use language to obscure the fact that they're hurting people.
She's an anarchist.
She is being very anarchistic here.
I always admire the way that Niedecker uses form. Like, this is such a tight little vessel that accomplishes a huge amount.
I think what you say about property is very interesting, and there's something really evocative for me here about the nature of property in relation to language, whether one can have ownership of language or not, and
Yeah,
whether
ownership of
what
language.
it means to cross out a phrase.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat thinking that she's foreclosing on herself as a writer because she is asking to become naked. In other words, all the walls are being taken away, the land's being taken away. So it does harken back a little bit to William Stans Bruce. But at the same time, I think she's saying that it's impossible to, as one of our discussion forums says, get to the truth as a poet.
Yeah, I guess ultimately we have to know whether the title of the poem refers to the situation of the house or includes the problem of language. And modernism, and she's, slightly second generation modernist. Modernism in its most idealistic was about restarting language. Williams talked in a revolutionary way about, taking down language like clearing the Carpathian Mountains, just start blowing the whole thing up and starting over, that kind of revolutionary impulse. And certainly Gertrude Stein in Tender Buttons felt that what she was doing was redoing connotation. And I think Lorine Niedecker had that, though she would never have been happy about it, nor would she celebrate it, had that instinct to start over. And I think this poem is sort of about getting back to basics, stripping all the walls and getting back. So thank you all. You were great doing this. I really appreciate it. Give yourselves a big hand.